Hey, continuing the second chapter of Hilchos Avodas Kochavim. We left off at Halacha Gimel, Halacha Daled. So the first three halachas of the second perek were an introduction to the various instances where you get where you get malchus if there's a maisa, not just thinking about avodah zarah, right? That's how the Rambam ended off halacha gimel. He said it's really not great thinking about it. However, you don't get malchus, right? So let's continue with halacha daled. Mitzvahs avodas kochavim keneged mitzvahs kulani, right? The severity, we're going to talk about for the next couple of halachas, the severity of idolatry, obviously, you would imagine, is being that it's part of the big three, right, that you have to give up your life for. So that's obviously one thing. And the second thing is that it's actually keneged all the mitzvos, meaning it's equivalent to all the mitzvos. Shenemar v'chitisku v'lo tasu es kol hamitzvos.
Why is your camera off, by the way?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just got a phone call. Better? Oh, okay. Sorry. It says v'chi tishku v'lo tasu es kol hamitzvos. Right? The pasuk in Shlach that talks about the carbon that you bring, right? When the Nasi does, it's called the Seir Avodah Zarah, right? And that whole parsha over there, that it says if you do Avodah Zarah b'shogeg, and the Torah equates Avodah Zarah to all the mitzvos. So when Pia Shmuel Lamdu, the good Rambam brings down the Gemara mentioned in a few places that this pasuk is talking about specifically doing Avodah Zarah, right? Because it says Kol HaMitzvos. Okay, Halimadat, we learn from here Shekol HaModah B'Avodat Kochavim Kofer B'Kol HaTorah Kula B'Kol HaNaviim, that if you are moda to Avodat Kochavim, meaning that you acknowledge that there's something to it, right? You could be a great Jew and do all the mitzvos and be perfect, and right, but you have that one fault, but that's a pretty big fault, right? Not acknowledging, God, and so that's a problem. So that overweighs everything else, right? You're kofar in everything. Ubachol hanavim, ubachol mashenitzavu hanavim, adam that sofa olam. Wow, everything that has ever been commanded, you are violating. Shenemar min hayom asher tziva Hashem v'halal l'dor seichem. Because the pasuk in Shlach continues to say, from today until forever, l'doros. V'kol ha'kofer b'avodas kochavim, and if you basically accept God and monotheism, modeh b'kol ha'torah kula, you basically are modeh to everything else. This is the absolute most fundamental mitzvah to acknowledging God. That's, and if you remember, the very first halacha in this whole book was that the Yesod HaYesodos, right? Remember that, the way the Rambam opens up this Mishnah Torah. He says basically the fundamental principle is believing that there's no God, believing that there's God, and if you don't believe that, then there's no reason to continue on to the next. You might as well close up now and leave, because this whole book, this whole Yad HaChazakah, is assuming that we believe in God. If not, then everything else here written is absolutely wasted. So that's what he said over there, and that's what he pretty much says over here. So, these are obvious things, like you can't, keep Shabbos and kashrus and go to the mikveh and do all kinds of things and like not believe in God. It doesn't make sense. But the problem is a lot of people, I will not editorialize. We'll continue to number 5. Number 5. Halacha hey, Yisrael sha'avad avodas kochavim harehu ka'oved avodas kochavim l'chol dvarav. So if you have a Jew who considers himself a good Jew, but he has a habit of serving idols, so how do we treat him halachically? Right? Again, he's Jew, he's got a bris, he's had a bar mitzvah, he keeps a kosher home, he may even keep Shabbos, he gives tzedakah. He's a wonderful fellow, right? He gives shir. He has one habit, though. His habit is Avodah Zarah. So does that conflict at all with everything else he's doing? Well, we just spoke about it. So the answer is we view him halachically as a non-Jew, believe it or not. We just don't say, oh, listen, there are people who are, they're great and they do wonderful things, and they'll have like I don't know, they'll have like a taiva. Let's say I have a penchant for wearing shatnez. I'm addicted to shatnez, and no matter how many times you tell me that it's a horrible sin to wear shatnez and this and that, I just have a taiva for it, and there's nothing I could do about it. Okay, so there are ways to deal with it, right? So when it comes to Avodah Zarah, we don't just say, oh, he's got this minor habit called Avodah Zarah, like you can't go around like that. So that's what the Rambam says. It's not just like, oh, he's a Jew, or like, let's say he's a mummer for Shabbos. He doesn't keep Shabbos. Okay, you could still count him for a minyan, and they're right. Okay, but now you could argue that the penalty for desecrating Shabbos is the same penalty for Avodah Zarah. That's true, but still Avodah Zarah is on a higher level. That's why the Rambam says that we just don't say, oh, right? He's just like another person, and he has this habit of violating things that have a skila penalty. So, because the rule is that if you don't believe in a God and therefore you serve Avodah Zarah, you're a mummer for everything. Every single thing you do gets wiped out. All right? You're considered a mummer. Right? We had this earlier on, remember, in Daf Yomi Land, in Daf Hey or so, when we were talking about a mummer and Ochel Nevelas, and right, how we view a mummer, is he allowed to do a shchita, right? That whole sugya on Daf Dalet, Hey Vav, right? We talk about this topic. V'chen ha'apikorsim miYisrael einam ki Yisrael l'davar min hadvarim ve'ein makablos on b'tshuva la'olam. And similar are apikorsim or minim, right? If they're Jewish, they are not regarded to be as Jews in any matter. And if they want to do tshuva, the Rambam says, not accepted. Wow, this is very, very controversial. Shenemar kol ba'eh lo yeshuvun v'lo yasigu archos chayim. A pasuk in Mishlei that basically says that they will not go to her to do tshuva, and they will not get their archot chayim, their way back of life. So we don't accept tshuva from apikorsim. The apikorsim hem hatarim achar machshavos libam besichlos dvarim. Right? Who are these apikorsim? Those are the people who go after their thoughts of what in their hearts, in their heads, right, concerning themselves and all their foolish things. Besichlos dvarim she'amarnu ad shenimtza over magufei Torah lahachis. Right? They end up going against the Torah on purposely, right? B'mezid, as they say. B'sha'at nefesh biyad rama v'omrim she'ein za'avon. Right? They do everything wrong on purpose, right? And yet they say, oh, we didn't do anything wrong. There's no sin. V'aser, and you could see the Rambam's going a little bit on a tangent here. And he says, v'aser l'saper yimahen l'hashiv alehen tshuva klal. And it's aser to, it's forbidden to talk to them and to even reply to them, right? Stay away from apikorsim. You don't want to be makar of them. You don't want to be anything to do with them. Shenemar v'al tikrav el pesach beita. pasuk in Mishlei that says, don't even come close to the entrance of her house. Because the rule is that a stam apikores, his default is always toward Avodah Zarah. So the Rambam here is taking a very, very big stand on apikorsim. Okay, he went a little off the topic, but obviously it's related to Avodah Zarah. So that is the negative. How about the positive? Halacha vav kol hamod b'avodas kochavim shehi emes. If you, excuse me, we're not going to go to positive here. If you agree in theory to the concept of Avodah Zarah, okay, afal pi shelo avda, you don't actually worship it, but let's say you actually condone it and saying it's great, it makes sense. I personally don't do it, but there's something to it. There's something interesting to it. So, wow, you are a blasphemer, and that is no good. And whether you are actually serving Avodah Zarah, or if you curse God, right? They're linked together. Whether you serve Avodah Zarah, or whether you are a Megadef, or whether you are a blasphemer, you're equal. Lefichach tolen oved avodas kochavim k'moshe tolen as a Megadef, right? So therefore, it's no coincidence that someone who worships Avodah Zarah and someone who is a Megadef end up getting hanged. Okay? Mushnehen niskalin, right? They're both hanged and they're stoned to death. I think what the Rambam is referring to is, well, first they're stoned and then they're hanged, because the rule is that those people who get skila there's a mitzvah on Bezdin to hang them up for a day or so, to show everyone, what the penalty, in order to serve it as a warning for everyone else. Umipnei zeh kalalti din hamagad b'chas avodas kochavim shneim kofrin be'ikarhen. So therefore, the Rambam says, if you're wondering why I'm talking about a Megadef is tantamount to Avodah Zarah, right? They have the same penalty, but Megadef is technically another person. If you look in the list in the 6th chapter in Sanhedrin, where it talks about those people who get skila, the Megadef is on the list. So that's why the Rambam is talking about a Megadef, even though he's not serving Avodah Zarah, but what he's doing gets the same sin, so that's why we equate them. Okay, and then we'll end tonight, but for the rest of the parak, you're going to see that we're going to talk about Megadef. He's going to go into all the rules about what you have to say in order to curse God. Okie doke. Have a good night.
Thank you.